2016 is an exciting year because my next book is coming out, published via Wiley, of course, globally. It's focusing in on the concept of seamlessness. But also the byline to the book focuses on something I like to call Futurephobia. And I want to ask you in this trend spot whether you suffer from Futurephobia, i.e. the irrational fear of the future, or whether maybe you have a love of the future. In other words, that you might be a futurephile, or you might be enjoying a little bit of Futurephilia. Now, when it comes to clothing, I'm a bit of an Anglophile. I have Anglophilia. Some people love French wine, so they are Francophile, so they have a Francophilic love of everything that comes from France. But when it comes to the future, many people today, I believe, suffer from something called futurephobia. Futurephobia being the irrational fear of the future and sort of thinking nostalgically that things might have been better in the good old days. Do you remember the good old days? The good old days when the cloud was just a meteorological term that blocked the sun. The good old days, of course, when Amazon was just a rainforest somewhere on the other side of the world. Now, things kind of seemed simpler back then. Now, oftentimes when I talk to my most difficult, my most challenging pro bono client, my mum, who runs a 100-year-old menswear store in Stockholm, Sweden, I get the sense that she believes, like so many people today, that being nostalgic is the same as being strategic. Now, there is no such equal sign between nostalgia and being strategic. Instead, I think what we need to do as business leaders today is to become future philes rather than future phobes. And by being a future phobe, I don't just mean having a fear of time. That's chronophobia, which is a diagnosed condition of people that are afraid of watches. They're afraid of any kind of time, be they digital or analog timepieces, but rather people who just have this irrational fear that in the future things might suck. Now, I want to encourage you in this trend spot today to ask yourself whether you might just not be missing out on all the good news for the future. The good news include the fact that, hey, even in a world where 9 billion people will be on this planet by 2050, we now have the means to feed all of those people. It's a world where increasingly young girls and women attend school for longer, where fewer kids die at childbirth and where fewer mums die at childbirth. Where increasingly we're living in an age where people have access to education and where poverty rates have been massively and drastically reduced as developing countries have become emerging economies around the world. There's plenty of good news out there, and I think we all as leaders need to become future philes and share our enthusiasm for that future with our organizations to ensure that the people we lead don't become future phobes, but rather come with us on a quest towards Futurephilia. If you like what you've just heard, make sure that you connect with us via social media networks like LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And also ensure that when you're thinking about your next conference or your strategy retreat, that you reach out and connect via your preferred booking agency or via our management agency to check on my availability. Would love to engage in a future dialogue with you.